Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast, and white in Magic's color pie has been a very hot topic in recent times, and it's a very important topic to me and everyone else on the Magic design team. So today I wanted to talk you through exactly what we've been doing to help out white and give you an unprecedented look at what the future of white holds. Let's do it. In the last several years, we've all seen a huge surge of popularity in the Commander format. And as more and more people enter the format and are building new deck lists and refining deck lists and comparing notes, and as the format simply evolves, they've noticed a few things. And a big one is that white doesn't have the tools it needs. With usually 3 opponents at 40 life each, some of white's strengths in 60 card Magic don't scale well to Commander. And yes, there are decks like Stacks, which can be quite competitive, but not everyone wants to play against Stacks decks. We've heard this feedback, which sincerely, thank you all so much for sending in, and we agree, white needs more tools. So a design goal for 2020 across the whole design team was to find ways to give white those tools. So from vision design, to play design, to the Council of Colors and everywhere in between, we were all working on trying to come up with these tools and give white new tools that still preserved its unique identity across not just Commander, but all Magic formats. The Council of Colors, the design group at Wizards that is particularly focused on the color pie, has especially been working on this over the past year. And I want to give a big shout out to the white representative, Ari Nieh, for all of his work on this topic, and also for helping me out with this video. Now, we make our sets really far in advance, but this is such an important topic, I wanted to tell all of you about it now. The only way for me to really do that is to give you an unprecedented look ahead at the future of Magic card design, which should be pretty cool. But there are 2 really important things I want to say before we get there. And if you're writing an article about this or making a post on Reddit, please get these 2 things in there. The first is that this is not inclusive of every single thing we are doing. There are going to be things like specific mechanics, for example, that I just can't talk about today. The second thing is, as a consequence of me telling you about this now so far in advance, that means you might not see it for a little while. So if it's not in the next set or the set after that, please trust that these things are coming. They just take a lot of time, and me telling you about them this far in advance means it's going to still take a while for them to get to you. Let's start off though with one that you have already seen a little bit of in Kaldheim, and that's Flash. One of the first conclusions we came to is that we want white to have more flash. So going forward, you'll find it in similar volumes to Black's Flash creatures. Let me tell you a little bit about why. First of all, we thought that either Flash or Haste would be really important for a color that relies mostly on creatures, because the counterplay sorcery speed interactions. Your opponent casts a Wrath, well, no problem, you can cast an end-step creature and attack with it on your next turn. Second of all, white's the color of combat tricks and defensive instants. But if you pass the turn and then don't need to cast them, you just wasted a bunch of mana and didn't develop your board. Flash creatures are perfect for solving that problem. And finally, a lot of epic plays in Magic come from responding to your opponents. So we just wanted to give white a bit more instant speed interaction in general. So while white has had a few flash creatures historically, you can expect to see more going forward. All right, now let's go a little bit in the future with one that you haven't quite seen as much of yet, and that's white card draw. Let me be very clear. We think white needs more card draw. Yes, that's right. Let me say it again. We think white needs more card draw. Now, we're not just going to print white divination and call it a day. We're looking to give white ways to draw cards in ways that feel uniquely white, kind of like how impulsive draw feels uniquely red. And to that end, here are a few ways that we're trying. First of all, there's symmetric draw. Me and one other player each draws some number of cards, and this plays particularly well in multiplayer. You've seen this before on a card like Farsight Adept, but it could be done for more than just one card. Second, there's rule setting draw. Since white can make rules, it also makes sense that if your opponent breaks those rules, you can draw a card. Third, there are cards that don't literally say the word draw on them, but get you cards back from your graveyard or out of your library. Now, we've done these in the past, but we're going to keep pushing forward in this space. You'll see experimentation in all 3 of these areas in the coming months. But once again, I want to stress these are not the only things we are doing. There's other things you'll see in the next year or 2 to come. Now let's talk about ramp. While card draw is priority number 1 of the 2 because ramp has so many colorless options white decks can already play, it's still very much on our mind to give white some ramp cards. More mana is a powerful thing, and white should have some unique tools of its own. There are 3 main ways we're working on white ramp right now. The first is Catch-Up Ramp, giving you a land if an opponent has more lands than you. And you've seen some of this in the past with cards like Keeper of the Accord. That card has played out pretty well, and we think this is a great space for white to play in, and we'll do more like it in the future. Second, there's what we call the Sun Titan effect. Since white can reanimate any permanent type, it also stands to reason just fine that white can reanimate lands from your graveyard. And finally, for number 3, there's treasure production cards. Right now you mostly know this as Smothering Tithe, but white could be doing more of this in the future. It's not going to do it super often, but it can do it, especially by taxing your opponents. There will be new cards in all 3 of these avenues over the next year, and we're also discussing some other options for the future. One other big thing we've taken away from recent feedback is that we could be a lot better about identifying cards in other colors, which could be powerful tools for white. So now as we're working on sets and reviewing files, we'll often ask ourselves the question, could this card be white? And quite often, with a small tweak, the answer is yes. And then we can make that tweak and switch it into white. And also, although it won't happen that often, we're also willing to imbalance the number of colored cards in our pre-constructed decks to give white more tools. So now let's talk about timelines. If this was a design goal for last year, how long until some of this stuff starts making it out into the world? And yeah, it takes a long time to make a Magic set because it's not just the card design, which takes a long time on its own. But keep in mind there's all the editing, templating, art, flavor text, creative, Magic Online programming, arena programming, production, distribution, trying out all the new booster fun frames, all this stuff all adds into the time it takes to make a Magic set. For example, we just released Kaldheim, and the last set design meeting for Kaldheim was in 2019. Of course, it wasn't just last year. We started working on some of this stuff a little bit earlier too. So the end result of all of this is over the next 12 months, you'll start to see a lot of cards in these categories that I talked about roll out. Some you already have, like Flash and Kaldheim. In Strixhaven, you'll see a few more fun things. And then over the course of the next year, expect to see a lot more cards in these categories. And some other things you'll see even later than that. After all, we're always evolving what we're doing based on what's happening with the cards that we're releasing, and also the feedback that you're giving to us. If I could snap my fingers and get these into a previous Magic set and into your hands, I totally would. But given our timelines, it's just gonna take a little bit longer, and I really appreciate your patience as we wait for them, and I cannot wait for you to see what all of these cards do. And finally, I really wanna say thank you for all of your feedback, and especially all of the content creators who have been leading the charge on this front on social media, like Pleasant Kenobi, Kristen Emily, and Cube April. Thank you so much for everything, and I really hope we can make some cards that'll do you proud. So let's keep that feedback cycle rolling, and if you have any thoughts on this video or white in general, leave them in the comments down below. I'll talk with you again on Friday, and in the meantime, may you have a lot of fun playing with your favorite color. You got this. The design team for Mirage had a lot of small effects that they liked, but there was a problem. A lot of them weren't worth a full mana to cast. Things like destroy target wall or target creature phases out for the turn. Not really worth that mana investment. But they had an idea. What if